All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Jennifer Bazan-Wigle, physical therapist here at the Power Gym. I'm going to let you guys know that I'm staring, of course, at my computer screen. I'm in this weird virtual studio with nothing in it, but it gives us really good sound. So hopefully everyone can hear. If for some reason you're having a little bit of trouble hearing me, just let us know. You can either put that in the chat and let us know. I can make sure to increase. Actually, that's what I'll do right now is increase my volume to make sure that, all right. Okay. So we have quite a few people here, and thanks for joining me. This is Ask the Expert. I will say that I'm knowledgeable. I don't know, expert sounds quite formal. As someone who is constantly learning, always trying to learn more, I would always say that, yeah, knowledgeable, but not quite an expert, maybe until my 80th birthday. How about that? Then I'll become an expert then. Until then, I'm going to share some of the things that I've learned about balance and especially when it comes to Parkinson's. I've been here at the Power Gym now I am going to be coming up on my 9th year here. I started in 2013 at about this time, I think in June, and I've learned a lot, of course, about Parkinson's, and I've learned a lot about balance, and along the way I've taken courses on balance. In fact, I just did one that was more geared toward older adults. So I'll share a little bit of information that I learned with you guys and talk to some balance. So what I would like to do before we get to some fun questions, because I'm excited to hear some of the things that you guys also are interested in when it comes to balance. So I'm going to share my screen with you. And it is a PowerPoint screen. We will do a little bit of movement. So I'm gonna tell you that right now, okay? We're gonna practice balance. You're not gonna get out of moving with me. So let me share my screen with you. And share. And now you guys are going to see hopefully a PowerPoint screen. And I guess I didn't do it so that we marked it so that you can, I guess it doesn't matter. Again, thanks for joining me, guys, for Ask the Expert. Balance. Like our brains, like feet, like our shoulders, it's very complicated. And then if we throw Parkinson's into the mix, when we talk about balance and Parkinson's, we see, I pulled some data from multiple sources talking about fall rates in Parkinson's. And of course, this again relates to balance, because why are people falling, right? The fall rate for Parkinson's is 35 to 70%. That's a huge range. When I read that number, I was like, that doesn't even make sense. It's like double. What I will say about the fall rate, and when we look at just adults over the age of 65, most people are already given kind of it's almost a little bit of a label. I think the paper was done in 2001, which is a long time ago, but the information about the 1 in 3, which is 33%, 1 in 3 people, adults over the age or 65 and older, are at a risk for falls. And that, to me, when I learned that, I was like, just by turning 65, that puts you in a very interesting category. Now, it doesn't make it so, which is good. It does not make it so, but it does put people at a higher risk. And for people that are for 80 and older, that number goes up to 50%. So those numbers are a little daunting, I think, when we start looking at fall rates. Multiple fallers, people that have lots of falls consistently throughout the year, and even people that are just newly diagnosed. Many of those people not 65 years old are also having and reporting falls. So when I say that, it sounds very doom and gloom for balance, doesn't it? That the older we get, that that falls are upon us. But there is good news. Do not fear. There is good news. Balance can be improved with practice. All right. And I see some familiar faces out there that know that have come and practiced with me. And let me do some crazy balance stuff with them. The research right now is saying that adults need at least 50 hours of practice, very focused balance practice per year to maintain or even improve your balance. So what does 50 hours mean, and how do we break that up? Like, what does that look like, right? When you see 50 hours, everyone's like, oh, that's a lot, right? But really, for those of you guys doing group classes where you are doing lots of different types of movement, whether it's in a chair, standing, definitely getting on and off of the floor. Even if you're doing if you go to a class 3 times a week, let's say, most of our clients here at our gym come to the gym 3 times a week. And even within that time period, if you were doing some form of balance, and we'll talk about what balance is in a second, but even if you're doing that for 20 to 30 minutes, and I'll probably say most people that are taking the power classes you're probably doing more than that. But let's just say, being conservative, 20 minutes. So if you did 20 minutes in each class, that's already an hour. And guess what? You're already there. If you get that hour in every week of balance training, you're already on your way to that needed 50 hours. And of course, you're going to get more, hopefully, because you got a couple of extra weeks of practice, right? So knowing that you have your group classes to kind of help you and assist you, is a comfort, but I always think it says at least. And these numbers are for people that don't have Parkinson's. So that means everyone here that's listening to the talk that has Parkinson's, you need to do more. So it's not just during your classes that you're going to be practicing balance, but it's going to be practicing throughout the week and just adding a few extra minutes, right? Every day. And then you're thinking, well, what kind of balance do I need to work on, right? That's where the challenge comes in, because again, like I said, balance is really complicated. In fact, there are researchers that have broken down the different areas or the different types of balance that we can look at. And when we look at balance assessments, or one of the areas that we look at, Dr. Faye Horak kind of broke it down for us as physical therapists. What are we looking at when we're looking at balance? And these were the 6 that she came up with. The first one says biomechanical constraints, which sounds really fancy for basically how is your body moving and how strong is it? Because you need those. You need to be able to have really good posture and good strength in order to have better balance, right? It almost is kind of the root of where sometimes things start. So are your ankles working well? Do you have good hip strength? How about your posture? In Parkinson's, we know that the biomechanical constraints can actually impact the rest of the balance areas. A lot of postural changes can affect that, especially because sometimes we may have weakness on those back portions of the body, those extensors, whether it's the trunk extensors, the rotators, our hips, the extensors of the hips, even our hamstrings, our calves. Those parts of strength are also important to help us with our balance. So thinking about those types of areas is what we would consider biomechanical constraints, especially when it comes to balance. Anticipatory postural adjustments. We're going to actually practice all of the rest of them, so I'm not going to dive too deep into the other ones. So anticipatory postural adjustments, basically our ability to be able to kind of figure out what our body needs to do to maintain balance if we're doing a task like picking something up off the floor or even getting out of a chair. Our stability limits, those are the ones where we're reaching. How far can I go? How far can I go before I've got to take a step, right? Those are the limits of stability, and we'll talk about those too. Sensory integration, that's really our ability to be able to use the inner ear, eyes, and the sensation coming from the ground. So usually at the bottoms of our feet, and how that plays into when we either challenge one or more of those areas, and how does that affect our balance? So when we close our eyes, or when I stand on something really squishy, what does that do to my balance? Reactive stepping, it's one of my most favorite ones, and probably the ones that's the most challenging to practice. This is the catch yourself kind of balance, which I think hopefully a lot of you guys are kind of thinking about when if you have a slip or a trip, that's the kind of reactive stepping that I'm talking about. And then the last one is what they call stability and gait. I call it agility. So it's really moving over the ground in dynamic spaces. I think that stability and gait is moving around your house, moving around your kitchen. You're turning, you're moving and moving in multiple directions. You may also be having to manage a couple of things at the same time. So those are the types of areas of balance that I want you guys to think about. And that's why it's so complicated. You know, when I ask someone about balance, they'll usually say, oh, my balance is horrible. I can't stand on one leg. That is only one kind of balance, right? Maybe two, maybe biomechanical constraints and anticipatory postural adjustment. So there's lots of other kinds of balance that we want to make sure that we're considering. And that's important to your practice when you're thinking about balance. All right. So I'm going to stop my sharing really quickly, and we're going to practice. Okay, so I can see you guys up on the screen, by the way, for those of you guys that are tuning in from afar, and even if you don't have your screen on, it's okay, but I still want to practice with you a little bit, okay? For biomechanical constraints, a lot of times I think that the power moves are really great at really helping to get our bodies ready to work on balance, whether that's working on strength or working on getting our range of motion, working on our posture, and then working with your physical therapist also to address some of those areas of weakness or tightness that may also be contributing to some of the issues that you may have with balance. So let's work on one of the most common areas of balance, which is those anticipatory postural adjustments. We call them APAs here in our therapy group. But one of them, the most simple anticipatory postural adjustment is getting up from a chair. So I'm going to scoot back, and you guys can practice it with me. As you go to stand up, think about how this is balance. So just go from sitting to standing, everyone. And I want you to think about, how is that actually balance? How is that balance? Right? And a lot of you guys are doing it slow. How about doing it fast? How does that feel different? If you do it quickly, big and fast, how does that feel different, right? Do you have the strength? Do you have the momentum? What are your feet like, right? Your body has to make adjustments with every little movement in that transition, right? Every movement, your body is making little small adjustments. And for people that have a hard time with sitting to standing, that's when we actually want to think, oh, I've got to really work on that portion of balance. Some of it is a little bit of coordination. Some of it may be some of the strength, but you need to be able to adjust yourself as you make that transition. Another great one Or wait, I just mentioned one, the single leg standing. You guys, I'm going to bring my computer down so you guys can see me. Kelly, would you mind grabbing that box? Sorry, guys. All right. I'm going to bring this down here so you guys can see me. And if you want to, you can stand up. And I have a chair next to me just in case. Again, we're working on balance right now. So go up on your toes. Can you go up on your toes? See what that feels like. And how is that balance? Can you hold it up there? For 3, 2, 1, and then bring it down. That is a component of balance. Your body has to change and react to that change in what's happening at your feet. What about single leg stand? I usually start with a kickstand first and see what that feels like. And then see what that single leg feels like. Your body is having to make adjustments. Every time you're doing that, every time you make one of these movements, you're having to make an adjustment. And you're having to anticipate, what do I have to do? Ooh, maybe if I put my arms out, will that help me, right? Maybe if I wiggle from side to side, right? Maybe if I bend my knee a little bit. You're making small little movements to anticipate what you need to be able to do to manage and maintain your best balance. All right, so those are some of the things to think about when you're working on those APAs. Let's talk about limits of stability, your limits of stability. And since I'm standing here, I'm going to reach as far as I can reach towards you. So why don't you do the same thing? See, and you can always have your finger on a chair if you think you need to. Go as far as you can. Don't let your heels leave the ground. Just reach out, reach. Can you go another inch? How about half an inch? Can you go and then come right back? How about to the side? How far can you go? How far can you go? How far? Don't let your heels leave the ground. Don't let your feet leave, and then come right back. What about backward? Could you reach back? How far can you go back behind you? I'm going to turn this way so you guys can see me. How far back could you go without having to take a step? Those are your limits of stability. I think that one makes the most sense out of all of them. And you know, sometimes we can change our feet, and that may also change our limits of stability. If I change my feet, I can go a lot further. Change your feet for a second and see how far you can go. You could probably go a lot further than you did before, right? You can probably go a lot further in all directions, depending upon how your feet are placed. So if our feet are quite narrow, which in Parkinson's, this can sometimes happen quite a bit, right? We see people bringing their feet are quite narrow. And so that's, again, just kind of a perceptual thing. But as soon as I go out to reach, I can't go very far. My reach is quite different. So again, just changing what's happening to your feet can really change your limits of stability and how far your body is able to go and move without having to take that step, which is the next one. Okay, those protective steps, which are extremely, extremely important, because the protective step is what we need to catch ourselves. The true definition of this is you actually need an outside force, something outside of you, taking you so outside of those limits of stability so that you go, and then you got to take that step, right? I did it to myself, right? But typically, if I were maybe on a rock that was a little wobbly, and all of a sudden the rock gave way, and I had to take a step, or I was walking and I tripped and I had to take a step, or someone bumped into me, and I had to take a step and react. That would be my righting response, or that that stepping reaction that I need to catch myself. So now you can do it voluntarily yourself. Try your forward. Go out as far as you can go. And then you're going to reach that point of no return where you've got to take a step. Remember, if you need to use your chair, have your chair there just in case. You can always do it to the side, going out as far as you can go, a little further, taking a step. You can go backward, reaching back, take a step. So again, those are ways that we can practice, just one way. And I think with your therapist, your physical therapist, you can come up with lots of other ways to do this, okay? Oh, my computer is really choppy. It's pretty slow. Yeah. I'm seeing myself pretty choppy right now, guys. So, do I look okay? Okay. All right. I'm hoping I look okay online, guys. If anyone wants to chat and just let me know that everything is okay, that would be great. Okay, great. Thank you guys so much. It might just be my slow computer. When we're working on sensory orientation, these are the 3 senses that we all need and use to help us with our balance. They kind of work together in conjunction, especially if...
There you are.
Okay. Good. Oh.
Yeah, it is slowing down.
Is it?
Too.
Okay.
Yeah.
So with that sensation, so things that you're feeling underneath your feet, right? The older we get, I read a statistic that something like 40% of people with Parkinson's are diagnosed with neuropathy. That means you're losing some of that sensation in your feet. That's going to challenge your balance, right? Oh yeah, it looks like I'm freezing up now. Yeah, because I'm not connected also to the Wi-Fi. I'm not hardwired in, unfortunately. It says it's better now. Okay, we're gonna keep going. So how do we challenge that? I have my mat here and I folded it in half. That gives me a squishy surface, right? So as soon as I stand on that mat, that challenges what I'm feeling under my feet. And a lot of times for people, when I'm having them practice this kind of balance, I have them take off their shoes and socks because I want maximum amount of information coming from your feet, especially if we're doing this in standing. So right now, all of a sudden I can feel my feet already kind of doing some work. My ankles are doing work. If I change my support of my feet a little bit, this is an APA mixed with some sensory together. And now, whoa, things get really challenging, right? And then you might have your physical therapist or a fitness professional say, close your eyes, right? And as soon as you do that, that changes a lot. That changes what you feel. That changes the reaction that you're having under your feet now, because I'm challenging my feet and I took away my vision. We are very dependent upon vision, especially the older we get. We become extremely dependent upon vision. So the research tells us that we actually need to practice doing things, especially exercise in a safe place, with our eyes closed. It's really important. And of course, using things that are going to challenge our balance, especially under our feet. It's also important to be doing things that are going to challenge the inner ear, like turning our heads while we're standing, challenging not only the surface of the bottom, looking up, looking down, again, even closing eyes and turning head, doing all sorts of things that challenge that inner ear as well. The last one is what they call stability in gait. I call it agility. And agility is really just a lot of the different types of balance that we talked about, but moving it over ground. It's kind of real life, right? I think of life as agility. But when I walk forward, stop, and walk backward, That's agility. That is a change in direction. I have to make some adjustments to my body as I go forward, stop, and then go backward. If I have to sidestep, if I have to go, stop, and turn around, those are changes in direction that require elements of balance. Turning in particular is extremely important. One of the highest risks of falls, or probably one of the biggest reasons why people with Parkinson's fall, is specific to turning. That's been reported by people with Parkinson's. Most of falls are happening during a turn. A lot of times people with Parkinson's will fall into a turn, and you can kind of see where that type of balance training is going to be very, very important to think about how to work on turns or that type of agility. All right. So I hope that all makes sense with you guys as you're thinking about how complicated balance is, but it may also help you to kind of narrow in and begin to think about, oh yeah, when I try and, I kind of, if I fall over a little bit, it's hard. It takes me like 3 or 4 steps to catch myself. Or turning is really hard for me, especially in the kitchen or in my closet. Or gosh, in my yoga class, I have a really hard time doing tree pose or holding a lunge position for a long period of time. That can help you to begin to think about the areas of balance that are going to be important for you to be practicing. All right, I'm going to take my screen back up. Awesome. That looks okay. I'll come back up. I'm hoping that sparked some questions from you guys. So I'll share my screen with you. We also here, of course, at the gym, and I can always share these slides with all of you guys too afterward. These are some just definitions, basic definitions. Hopefully I explained it well enough for you guys to know. Those are the different areas that we just practiced. We didn't show agility, but I do want to share with you guys, there is lots of research, especially in Parkinson's, on each of these areas that we've worked on. I think of those APAs, we work a lot in the gym on big whole body, fast, vigorous movements. I kind of think about throwing and punching and reaching in all these different directions. And that will cause these changes that we have to be able to anticipate as we're moving through those movements, especially if we're changing those directions quickly while we're in the standing position, even while we're sitting. We do a lot of big movements where we have to kind of think about even our balance, even in the sitting position. Again, there's those limits of stability, and these are from studies. Practicing controlled leaning, these are from the studies. What are they doing with people in walls or corners? Progress the challenge by varying, again, your base of support. You need to be changing what your feet are doing in order to challenge yourself with those limits of stability, kind of like what we did. And then there's the sensory integration. So much good research for you all that working with your therapist, especially if getting up in the middle of the night and taking those first couple of steps with it very, very dark out. That's when also falls happen as well. So challenging your vision as we get older, we're just becoming more visually dependent. So how do we challenge that to help improve our balance? Doing lots of things like even just becoming more aware, more proprioception, right? So we do a lot of stuff on the ground because a lot of times the more that we can feel, the better we can make those balance changes. And of course, the reactive stepping. We do a lot of things on uneven surfaces that require someone to have to almost take a step off of that squishy surface or that uneven surface. And those are really good things. When someone has to step off of someone, they're like, oh, I wasn't able to maintain that. I'm like, it's okay. You stepped off, and that's what we want. I want to see that stepping response. So, being able to vary that predictability. Sometimes we put bungees on people that have different weights, so that you all of a sudden you feel this little pull from different locations that you have to react to and step to make sure that you're really maintaining your good balance. So those are from lots of different studies on Parkinson's. Thinking about your APAs, we practiced sitting to standing, but also getting on and off of the floor would be a type of an APA. It's also a type of agility because we are moving from one position to another. So these are some quick videos. These are from our website. And we'll play them if we have some time, because I'm really interested in your guys'
knee. Oh, I'm going to take the other knee down. Take a knee. All fours down to the belly. Push back up to your all fours. Bring one knee forward. Let's get ready. Power up to stand. Get ready. And give me a jump. One more.
So that was a lot of different kinds of balance, clearly, but a nice way to be able to see those APAs, your ability to be able to react as you change from different positions, getting on and off the floor. So when someone says to me, oh, I don't know about getting on and off the floor, I tell them, you know what, if you can do that, you're working on your balance for sure. You're working on those biomechanical constraints as well, because that I guess I should have put that one there too, because it requires elements of strength and flexibility to be able to get on and off of the ground. It's a lifelong skill, so it needs to be practiced as well. Let's go here. So you can see Pandora here. She's got a nice squishy pad. She's going to be working on that sensory integration. So some of that uneven surfaces, because she's changing her base of support and going to be working on stepping in multiple directions. She's going to work on those APAs and also a little bit of reactive stepping. So being able to get that foot out quick enough in time. I'll show you the one on the left over here.
Watch me once, eyes on me. We're going to come front, back to center, side, back to center. Good. Coming behind, back to center, and then cross behind and back to center. All right. Then we'll do all that on the other leg. So starting with that right leg, front, side, back, and then cross behind. Nice and powered up. Spread those feet out a little bit. Here we go. Shifting that weight to your left leg, tapping with the right. Come with me. Front, center, side, back. Now cross behind for one. We're going to do it 3 more times. Front, center, back, cross behind. Good.
All right. So that's a little bit of Pandora giving you a whole bunch of different kinds of balance. Certainly, I would always say, guys, that it's hard to just practice one.
Watch me once. Eyes on me. We're going to come front, 2, back to center.
Is really slow.
3. Hold it here. Count to 5. 1,
Sorry,
2.
guys. I'm clearly not very good with this. My computer is a little sluggish. I just wanted to quickly show you guys the research insights for agility. There's a lot of them because there's a lot of different kinds of agility, whether it's movement sequences. We do a lot of things: high, middle, low, forward, side, back, changing the progressions of those, making them more challenging, working on timing, whether it's with music or metronome, some stop and goes. I kind of call them red light, green lights. Those are really fun. Those quick starts and stops in kind of a staying in one position. There's the overground stuff that I think is more classic to thinking about agility, especially when it comes to moving over ground. And then, of course, there's the vertical mobility, which thinking about sit to stand is a type of a vertical mobility, but definitely getting down onto the ground, getting back up, moving over ground. I kind of think of these movements like, whether it's crawling, whether it's going from kind of doing some tuck and rolls, those would all be considered types of agility. And I don't want to do this, and I'm wondering how I can do it quick, how I can skip it. How do I skip these? I try, as soon as I do it, it turns it on.
Low, middle,
And then I can't
middle,
get to it quick enough. All right. I'll show you real quick. Pandora's on.
high, high, low, low, middle, middle, high, and high.
All right. No. Okay. I'm going to play this.
Low,
Stop it. And then go.
low.
No. Okay. There's more of me doing all kinds of crazy balance things. Here's some more dynamic stuff.
If you click the screen instead of the arrow, does it go to the next slide?
Ready, side step over, get ready to backward, and head back to that number one. All right, let's go a little quicker here. We're gonna go forward, side, backward, back over to the one. Reverse direction, so back in the numerical order. So we're gonna go to the 2, head to the 3, 4, go backward, reverse, head to the 4, 3, take it back to the 2. We're going to take now go to the 1. Now, with the pull, one at a time, and there's my 2. Let's take it back to the 1. So stepping.
Yikes. I don't know what's going on. Sorry, guys.
Left hand is free to open, twist it back, and come back up.
All right. Yeah, I'm completely frozen on here. All right. Oh, no. Oh, no. Okay. Am I okay?
Yeah. You're moving on this one.
Okay. Sorry, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and get out of my PowerPoint only because I'm thinking it's slowing up my entire computer right now, especially since I'm playing videos. So I'm going to go ahead and stop that. And I just want to look and make sure that I'm not missing anything. And they can still see me, right? Awesome. Okay. So that's a little bit about balance. Making sure that, of course, we have some time for you guys to ask questions, which is really important. Just thinking about what can be improved with balance. What can we do to improve it? So I mentioned group classes, which I think are extremely important, especially Parkinson-specific group classes. Most of the instructors have some knowledge and background in understanding Parkinson's and how they can also help you to improve those different areas. In the research right now, physical therapy for balance and walking has quite an extensive and really good track record, especially for people that therapists that are Parkinson-specific therapists, that their job is to really push you. I always tell, I kind of learned that you can use our rating scale of easy, moderate, hard, not only for aerobics, but we can also use it for balance. And my job as a therapist, if I'm working with someone, is to really challenge them. And if they tell me, oh my gosh, this balance is really hard, I'm like, yes, I did my job. Because we want that. We want you to feel those challenges, because then balance in your everyday life is going to feel pretty easy. So it is our job to kind of take you to that very limit of challenge as much as we can, because we know that improves your balance, it decreases falls, and it inevitably helps you with your overall walking in life. This idea of utilizing video games, which is not something that I do myself. However, there's good research to back it up. So if those of you guys have Wii's or different games, video games that incorporate, that have balance incorporated into it. I know the Wii, which is kind of an older game, has a full platform on it, which actually gives lots of great feedback. And there's research to actually back up that it does help improve people with Parkinson's, their balance. Tai Chi. Tai Chi probably has some of the best research in the last 5 to 8 years looking at the improvements in Parkinson's balance and also walking as well. There are different types of Tai Chi programming. The evidence-based Tai Chi is going to be the best. It's typically a protocol set at least 3 days a week, and that's where they see the most gains. Dance. Oh my goodness, such good information on dance and more coming out all the time. Dancing incorporates a lot of those areas of balance that we were talking about, at least 3 or 4 of the areas out of the 6 that we were talking about. Lots of agility training in dance, lots of changes in movement, direction, even a little bit of unpredictable movements as well. So those are kind of what the research is telling us. And of course, I tell people do the things that of course you enjoy doing, but also trying some new things to see how does that challenge your balance. One of the biggest things I'm going to tell all of you guys is to go and see a physical therapist and or an occupational therapist, because they are the ones that are working with you to really, one, identify out of those 6 areas, what are the areas that you're having the hardest time with, or what are the areas that they need to really hone in on and make sure that we're working on those with you, because then those become the areas that you take home with you. I had met a gentleman earlier in the week, and he's like, oh, I've been doing my single leg stand, for the last 5 years. I do it, at least every day. And I'm like, how is it? And he's like, I can't do it. So to me, it's like, oh, well, then I got to look at those other areas of balance to make sure we understand why he's not able to stand on his single leg. And even though he's been practicing like mad, I know, to me, that tells me that we've got to work on some other areas. So I think, to me, as long as you're doing something, doing some form of balance, but also knowing what are the ones that you really, really need to work on, and what are the activities that you can do safely at home to work on those and get better at them. So that's again, our challenge for all of us as we focus in on this area of balance. Okay, so that's what I got. And of course, I have a few more other slides, but I'd love to see and hear a few. Is there any questions, Callie, that have come in?
Somebody was asking, I responded.
Oh, okay.
How do you get people with bad knees to practice getting down?
Ooh, that's a good question. A lot of times with people with that have, especially people that have like osteoarthritis, even people that have total knees, it can be a challenge, because I think a lot of times we're just going to avoid it altogether, because when there's pain involved, we don't want to increase pain, but can we do it in a way that might encourage someone to do it so that they don't feel as much discomfort? The goal would be to get down and maybe just practice it once or twice. I love, what did you say? Did you say a pad?
Like a foam pad.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So this is a nice thick balance pad. This is probably about 3 inches thick, and it's really nice. It's really cushy, and it allows for someone to be able, once they put their knees on there, they'll usually feel pretty supported. And if I use, and now I'm going to have to scoot all the way back again, maybe we'll drop it down.
I'll just hold it real quick.
Oh, okay. Kylie's just going to hold it for me. But if I know that I need to come down to my knees here, I can put my hands on the chair. So then I've got some good hand support here. And then I can slowly make my way down to my knees. This feels lovely on the knees. It kind of helps to kind of float the knees a little bit. And then you can work on that motion in that way. Now I'm working on getting down to the ground and getting up again, right? So I'm working on those wonderful agility and APAs. But if I'm doing it in a way that I'm using my whole body to do it, I'm using my hands for support, a lot of times the more that people are able to at least come down, and then they can come all the way down to the ground, come back up, and use that cushion it's hopefully going to encourage people to then begin either to get one of these. I tell people to buy kneelers that you can get at gardening stores. Some of them are quite firm and they're pretty inexpensive, even on Amazon. As long as it has a little bit of give to it, typically people are going to feel pretty comfortable coming down onto them. All right.
Another question was on using a BOSU for balance training.
Ooh. So a BOSU is awesome, right? They're great. BOSUs are a pretty amazing device. We call them BOSUs, right? Because of the fancy person that designed it. I think is it ball upside down? I can't remember what it means, what it stands for. They just lost their patent, thank goodness. So we don't have to pay $150 for those anymore, but they're great. They're wonderful devices. And you can actually work on a lot of different kinds of balance with your BOSU. You can do it even on the ground. I do a lot of things on knees on the BOSU, and that works again on our trunk stability, our APAs in the, if I'm on my knees and I power up from my knees on BOSU, but standing on the BOSU, moving on the BOSU, you're working on those APAs, you're definitely working on sensory orientation. That squishy thing is very unpredictable, especially because of the shape of the BOSU.
Oh, don't touch my phone.
I didn't mute everybody. I forgot to do that. And I think the other one that you're going to work on typically can be a writing response. There is one gentleman that's what we worked on. He found a BOSU at like a Goodwill or a secondhand store. And he's like, what do I do with this thing? Which was great that he got it and he just purchased it. He's like, this is probably an expensive thing. And I'm like, it is. So he was really excited to use that. If you have questions about those different areas, right, on when you're thinking about what are the things that I can do with that, that's again, a perfect opportunity to talk with your physical therapist and find those areas using the BOSU that are going to be most beneficial to you. Who is that?
Glenn.
Oh, Glenn. All right. I was looking at a question that Aaron asked, but let's see if we can, Aaron, I'm going to come back to your question because I'm interested to dive into that just a little bit. So Glenn, is Glenn out there? Hey, Glenn, unmute your mic.
And or not, because there she is. I can hear you, Glenn.
There she is.
Thanks, Glenn. Go ahead.
No, actually, I raised my hand by accident, but yeah, sorry.
It's
sorry,
okay.
but just wanted to say hi.
Hi, it's good to see you. All right, Aaron is asking, he's like, why do I feel like I'm skating? I'm behind. Ooh, I feel like I'm on ice skates. It would be interesting, Aaron, to kind of see, if you're one, I would always tell people, start your single leg stand without your shoes and socks on. That makes a big difference, I think, in people's balance. Our shoes, typically when we're practicing with shoes on, have all this cushion on the bottom, which is kind of like standing on a foam, right? It's kind of interfering in your ability to feel the ground through your feet and get all that information. So that's what I tell people to do first. Start with practicing without your shoes and socks on and see if that changes that sensation of feeling like you're going to slip, like you're going to fall. The other thing that I'll tell people to do is don't go straight to single leg, but do what I would call a kickstand. So a kickstand, of course, kind of helps keep you upright. Sorry, I was tying my shoe so I don't trip and fall. And Callie's gonna face that down for me a little bit. All right. So a kickstand, Aaron, is really just taking your foot, your toe, and just tapping it down. So again, it's just a kickstand so that that toe is there to just be a little bit of support. And I can move my kickstand wherever I want. So the further my kickstand is, the easier I'm going to have with my balance. The closer my kickstand, the more challenging this is going to be, because then it feels very similar to single leg stand, right? This might be a way to practice that single leg stand. The other way that I always tell people to practice, I'm going to be right back, is to use a pole. All right? So if I have like a broomstick or a walking stick of some kind, then practice your single leg stand here. You can again keep that hand out, bring it close. You can see if you can do some movement with that leg. Then what do things feel like now? And then as you start feeling better about this, using the pole, lifting, bringing down, how does that feel? The more grounded you are with your feet, the better you're going to feel, first of all. But then use a small piece of equipment, whether that's a pole or your own toe, to kind of help work on it so that you don't feel like you're all over the place. Because you are, right? You're kind of on that single leg, you're like, whoa, 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 right? So use something to help you stabilize. And again, maybe that's also these other areas overworking, and maybe your ankles and knees and hips not doing a lot of the work as well. So again, we use our whole body to kind of maintain that single leg, but how do you stabilize? And that's where you can use a pole, use your toe, and then you can have fun and play in this position, and do things that are dynamic or do things that are realistic, like look at the bottom of your shoe, right? Or pull your sock up. Those are more realistic tasks in that single leg stand that make sense to me, that lend themselves to something functional, of course. But if you're feeling like you're like all over the place, find something to stabilize you. This is not connected to the ground, right? It's just a small stick, but it gives me just enough stability that I feel like, oh, I can push down into that stick, and I feel like, oh, my core is activated. I feel pretty strong here. And that's a good thing. Those are good things to feel that stability. And then you can practice for a second, put the stick down. Imagine that you're holding that stick. And this is what I tell people. Imagine you're holding that stick, and that's what it feels like. You're digging that stick in, and then feel what it feels like to lift. Because now you've got that sensory, you've kind of given your body what it should feel like to stand up without being ice skating. I'm not an ice skater because I grew up here in in Southern Arizona, but I understand that sensation, especially of that slippery feeling, right? That you're just kind of doing all this motion to try and keep yourself upright. And that is something we're trying to, with the APA, that's almost so much movement that it's hard to know what's really going on there. So stabilizing yourself, using your core, using those hip muscles to help you stand strong, and using all the information coming from your feet to do that. I hope that helped, Erin, without meeting you or hanging out with you. When I have my class moving their feet and try to add their arms, some people have a big issue putting two things together. Is there a trick? Yeah, so dual tasking. I did that today, and I'm always surprised and it's such a challenge, right? And we know in Parkinson's, and that's another challenge in Parkinson's, right? As soon as we start to add that secondary task, that requires another element of brain power, if you will, right? To be able to manage the two tasks at once well. Add the arms. And you know, Andy, a lot of times what I'll do is I might just do like the leg movement. So for instance, if I do like a power, sometimes with my power twist, I'll start with just the legs and we'll just work on just the twist. We'll work on just the twist. And sometimes just breaking that down, and I'll even let them feel that clap. They're not going to get through their full range of motion, right? Just letting them feel that clap, and then maybe put it together that way, or break it up. Sometimes I'll go hip, hand, open, hip, hand, open. So sometimes actually incrementally adding that secondary task. So really breaking it down. Or the other thing that you can do is tell them how to prioritize it. So give them an option saying, I really want you to focus on the stepping. If you happen to pass that scarf around your body every once in a while, go for it. So then you can prioritize what you want as the most important. Is the balance component the most important? And then the secondary stuff is extra. But a lot of times people will they need to practice. And again, that's the thing, is we also want to make sure that we're giving them enough practice to feel like they can take it to that next level. And let them make those decisions, right? Those are the hard things. When you kind of look out at your group and you're like, oh man, no one's getting this, then that kind of tells you have to kind of take a step back for a moment, go back to either one task at a time, split them apart, and then see if you can either do them together, one and then the other. One and then the other. I love to do like scarf tosses with stepping. And a lot of times it's really hard to put those two tasks together. And that is definitely a balanced task for certain. And it's also a task that requires that dual action, right? Paying attention to, or dividing that attention. So first I'm going to take the step. First, we're just going to practice the step, right? And then we're just going to practice tossing. And then can I step, then toss? And then can I do it step and toss, right? So those are kind of some of the strategies. And then there are also times when you guys, as an instructor, you have to kind of decide, is this really worth the frustration for the class? And maybe just keeping the tasks where they have to divide and go back and forth between the tasks may be more appropriate for the class. All right, anything else? Any other questions? Crazy balance questions, anyone? Ooh. Ken, I should have like Kat come back here and wax poetic about the vestibular system and Parkinson's. It does, and I would say just even in aging, as we get older, the inner ear begins to change, whether that has to do with the otoliths, or the little rocks in our ears, right? And how they're able to move smoothly and quickly. A lot of times people will have issues with their inner ear, and that's from a kind of the outside the brain kind of an issue. But there is now research kind of showing that there are some changes in Parkinson's specifically that are going to affect the vestibular system. I think of that slowness of movement already, and how some of that slow hypofunction of the vestibular system can also maybe be able to be related back into Parkinson's in general. So I think if we're treating those areas of balance, especially when it comes to eye scanning and looking, having people close their eyes while they're doing different tasks, scanning letters and moving down, doing lots of turns, whether that's in standing, whether that's also on the ground, and challenging the vestibular system, I think is going to be important, not only for Parkinson's, but just for the aging population, because both of them are going to need that kind of balance type training for certain. Yes. So good question, Ken. if you are looking for more information on that, I know that Kat has already started kind of putting a talk together, has already done a talk actually for other therapists about the vestibular system in Parkinson's specifically. Great questions, you guys. Well, I think we've reached our 5:30 mark. If there's not any other burning questions, I would love to answer anything. Any other fun pieces of equipment? I know that a couple of our clients, we use this crazy thing that kind of feels like standing on a boat. It's like the shuttle. I have a few colleagues that are using slip and trip ways that you can challenge your balance even in your home. Oh, shoot.
Yeah, you froze, but you're unfrozen now.
I'm unfrozen? I'm like frozen, unfrozen. Okay. All right, everybody. Yep, I'm totally frozen right now.
Yeah.
Am I okay?
You're okay.
Oh, okay. I'm not okay on mine. All right. If there's any other questions, guys, I appreciate all of you guys that came out to come and hang out with me today, this evening, this fabulous Wednesday evening. If for those of you guys that maybe think of a question a little later on as you're kind of processing all of those crazy different kinds of balance and why it's so complicated, and you come up with a question, please don't hesitate to send an email. And I would definitely, if I can't answer the question, I'll definitely go and find the answers to any of your questions that you should ask. But again, oh my gosh, good to see you, Emily. I just saw your name. I'm like, oh my gosh, so nice. But of course, anytime anyone has any questions about anything, don't hesitate to send me an email, send me a message either through the website, and it will typically be directed to me, but Jennifer at powerforlife.org. I can even put it in the chat if that works for you guys. Thank you. Mary from Arkansas, Mary Plumley, who is so amazing. Thank you so much, Glenn. Thank you, Gilbert. It's so good to see you. I still do your talk about agility, Gilbert. That awesome walking flow that we do because of you is so great. Thank you, everyone, for coming today. I appreciate your attention. And again, if you guys have any further questions that I didn't get to answer, oh yeah, let's put it in there. Let me do that. I guess that's up to me, huh? Let me go. I'm going to get out so I can do everyone in the meeting. Here's my email. I'll give you the most current one, jwigle at PWR, the number 4, life.org. There it is. All right. It did, Gilbert. We're doing it all the time. It is on the agenda. It is on our checklist, Gilbert. So we thank you so much. I'm assuming you're probably graduating soon. Are you graduating soon, Gilbert? So amazing. I love it. I love it. So thanks, everyone. I love having both my awesome clients and people that I see on screen with my classes and work with in therapy, and also my colleagues out there. Thank you guys so much for coming this evening and your time. That was really great. Thanks so much, everyone.